Schumer has been a senator for New York for 23 years. If there's any chance of flipping the Empire State from blue to red, Joe Pinion says he's the man for the job.
Joe Pinion joins us live now. New Yorkers have voiced their thoughts already by early voting, but again, a lot of folks wait till actual voting day, which is less than 24 hours away. Keeping in mind, we know you've been outspent by a campaign with 10 times the staff, obviously the Senate Majority Leader. Joe, what is your strategy in this race?
Look, the strategy had been clear from the beginning that we walked away from the opportunity of a lifetime at Newsmax to take on the Senate Majority Leader because we believed he was driving America into a ditch. And it was our belief that come Election Day, people would be dealing with record inflation. They'd be looking at electric bills that made them want to have a heart attack. They'd be looking at milk costs at $6 equal to the cost of diesel. And they would realize that the emperor had no clothes. And Chuck Schumer has been responsible for much of the pain and misery that we have experienced in New York State for the last 24 years in the Senate, 42 years in Congress. And I think most New Yorkers are ready to turn the page and choose a new generation of leadership.
And you know, Joe, some New Yorkers who've typically voted Democrat, those who might have even cast their ballots for Chuck Schumer, are willing to at least look at the Republican candidates. We've heard this in the case of Lee Zeldin, where they're looking for different leadership when it comes to dealing with crime in the city and all across the state. Have you noticed that for voters? Are you reaching out to those independents or even Democrats who are looking for a fresh face?
Absolutely. And we've said from the beginning that we didn't have to pull this entire wagon train ourselves, that Lee Zeldin was going to do a good job running for governor. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to one day and one ballot. And if there are enough people showing up to vote for the next Republican governor of this state, there's surely enough people showing up to say that we can send Chuck Schumer to the retirement home of politics once and for all. And so that has been our perspective, that people realize that we now have a New York State that has more murder per capita in Rochester, New York than we see in Chicago, Illinois. We have a New York State where Syracuse, New York now has the highest level of child poverty in the nation. We have a New York where we have seen shootings go up 90% and homicide go up 30% in New York City. And Chuck Schumer has done nothing but tell us that our eyes are lying to us. And so he no longer works for us or the 19 million that call this state home. We see a great trend towards Republican candidates up and down the ballot. We're going to beat Chuck Schumer because of the fact that New Yorkers simply recognize that he has sold us a bill of false goods.
You know, you talk about your opponent, also the incumbent there for more than a couple of decades. Recently, he's stumped with Governor Kathy Hochul. I'm curious to know your thoughts about that, essentially hitching his ride there to Governor Kathy Hochul, who's slipping a bit to Zeldin in the polls there. Do you think that helps or hurts him?
Let's be very clear. Chuck Schumer has never won an election with less than 66% of the vote. And as we sit here today, he is gasping for air trying to get above 50%. So those are the stakes. They gassed up Air Force One, flew the President of the United States to hold a rally 500 yards from my house. I don't think that's a coincidence. No sitting president has ever come to my hometown of Yonkers, the third largest city in the state of New York, a city where we have school buildings that are on average 75 years old, or we have close to 80% of the children that attend those public schools living in poverty. So they, again, are doing the poverty pimping tour. They show up where they think that people will just automatically vote for them, blind to the reality that they have taken our pain and suffering for granted for the better part of 20 and 30 and 40 years. So this is the year. We're going to break the back of one-party rule. As I told Carl Higbee on Sunday, we're probably going to be on the Jumbotron in China because people are going to recognize that Chuck Schumer's days are done, that the American people have spoken, that this leave it to beaver attitude from our southern border becoming a fentanyl crisis to our foreign policy becoming a global nightmare, it has to come to an end. And that starts with retiring Charles Ellis Schumer once and for all. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m., the people are going to let their voices be heard.
All right. We'll just have to leave it right there. Joe Pinion, thanks for taking the time with us today. And speaking about your campaign, we'll be watching those results as they come in.
Absolutely. Go to joepinion.com, folks. We got an election to win.
All right.
Good to see you, Joe. Thank you. All right. Meanwhile,